Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 3 of the Bebop Rewatch. My name's Jason, and I'm from Wulong Talks, as you know. And we've been joined tonight by my homie Rich Kid, aka the Rustling Kid, aka Rich Reviews. Rich, say what's up, man.
What's up, man?
Yeah, good to have you back, bro, and good to have you back, listeners, as well. So we're gonna dive straight into session 3 because this session is—I know I keep saying this, but this session is excellent, man. It really is. Um, I mean, for the 3 episodes that we've seen so far, I think this one might possibly be stealing it, but then I don't know. What did you think of this session and the first episode, Rich? Like, how does it stack up to the other two that we've had so far?
Um, you know what? It's weird because I was actually thinking about this. Like if you listeners don't even know like how we've been dealing with this, the Bebop rewatch. We basically just watch it and then just wax lyrical. We might have like a little bit of a chin wag just to get things moving. But as I was watching this, it's weird because even just thinking of it, even just thinking this sounds blasphemous to me. But it's not my favorite episode. And that's not saying that it's not a good episode. Like a
Mm-hmm.
bad episode of Bebop is better than a majority of the best episodes of some shows for me. But out of the three so far, this is the weakest episode, but I love it still.
Mm.
Um, so I'm gonna have to disagree with you. Not disagree with you in that one, but like meet you on the other side of the fence in that one. Um,
Fair enough.
but then but then once again, it's like like we keep on saying, like the story, the 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 characters in it, like everything, the music, everything is just perfect. I can't fault it, but it's just not my favorite compared to the other two.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Well, we can get into why it isn't, and all of that in a bit. So we'll
Yeah,
definitely do all of that. But listeners, for those of you who are just finding us for the first time, as I said, we were going to dive straight into session 3, which is the third episode in the series Cowboy Bebop, the anime series. For those of you that don't know, and as I said, just joining us, we have done two kind of walkthroughs of the first 2 episodes. You can find that on our channel, wherever you're listening to this. If you just head to our channel page, you'll see the Bebop Rewatch sessions 1 and 2 available there. You'll be able to have a listen to those to get a flavor of what we're going to do. But yeah, man, as I said, let's just dive straight into it, really. So this episode is one that originally aired way back in November of 1998 on Japanese TV. And again, like as it this series does so well, it doesn't really bother too much with kind of exposition and trying to set things up. It just drops you straight into the story. If you've been listening to the previous podcasts that we've done, you'll know that Rich has commented on how that's part of what this show is about. It's kind of about giving you snapshots of somebody's life at a certain point. So it's not too preoccupied with kind of telling you who this person is, why they're here, and so on and so forth. It just gets down to the nitty gritty. And we get that straight away from this episode. We have, it looks like we've returned to Tijuana, which I think we visited in the first episode in session 1. And we're back on Tijuana. That's the planet Tijuana, not the place Tijuana in Mexico. And we see somebody enter what looks like a Chinese tea house. I'm assuming it's a Chinese tea house because on in Tijuana, as we discussed in the previous episode, when you first arrive there, there's a very heavy kind of Chinese influence in the locations that are used in the anime. And it looks like it's the same tea shop, possibly from the second episode. I don't know if I'm getting confused, but I think it might be the same tea shop because it's the same gentleman behind the desk, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it is.
it
Yeah,
looks like the same guy, isn't it? Yeah, so it's the same tea shop. So you don't even really see the person walk in. You see it's a woman. You see the legs walk into the shop first. And you see the gentleman behind the counter kind of look up and get a bit excited. And then, as she arrives at the counter, um, he says something like, "Are you looking for work? You can make a lot of money." Um, no, sorry, she makes a comment first, doesn't she? She says,
yeah,
"I'm digging the shades, man," and he says, "I'm digging everything you've got." And I was like, "You little
yeah,
perv."
yeah, yeah. I'm thinking everything I see.
Yeah, some little old perv. But yeah, so she takes a cigar out of like a cigar case on the table, and because all of this is kind of filmed and animated from point of view, you don't really see her face until he pulls out a lighter and then he lights it up, and you see this young woman wearing glasses. She's wearing kind of relaxed clothes, and she lights up this cigar at the desk. And then the next shot is these three dudes who pull up outside, who look like they're up to no good, kind of look into the tea shop and then can obviously see the person in there. And we assume that they're after this person because they're like, yeah, this is it. And then the person gives us probably the coolest bit of dialogue you get in this episode. I really love this line where she reaches down to a briefcase that she's carrying and she pulls out a submachine gun, and she turns to the little old man behind the desk and she's like, um, do you know what rule number one of combat is? Um, so he doesn't respond. She loads the weapon and just starts lacing shots across the street at the guys outside,
Mm.
blasts up the whole place. And then when she finishes the clip, she's like, shoot them before they shoot you. And I was like, oh man, that was so cool. Like as a way of introducing the character, like that is just about as cool as you can get. Um, then another car pulls up outside, and this guy is carrying like a massive one of those, like a Gatling gun, isn't it? I think it's called like the one
Yeah,
that
it's a Gatling.
yeah, it's a Gatling, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. It's the one that like Jesse Ventura has in Predator. So kind of
Yeah.
version of that, and he pulls that out. He starts licking shots now back across the shop and destroys pretty much everything. The man ends up with sort of cowering behind there. And then when the kind of bullets stop and the smoke clears, he looks up and the woman is kind of outside and is surrounded by all these guys with guns in her face, which straight away made me think of a John Woo movie because that's how my mind works. And they sort of capture this woman and take her into their custody, I guess. Um, how did you find that introduction for the character? Because I flipping, like I said, being an action movie junkie, being a fan of the Wild West, I kind of loved all of that, like the sparse dialogue. There really was much need for talking or a said
Mm.
exposition here. It was just we could tell you who this person is, but no, we're going to show you instead. So like
Yeah, yeah.
literally get that kind of that brilliant, as said, interaction with her and the old tea shop owner and the gangsters outside. So yeah, how did you find that opening in comparison to some of the other ones? Did it kind of was it in keeping with what they'd done before, or did it feel sort of different compared to the two previous episodes?
Well, to me, I think, I mean, so far, out of the few episodes we've watched, this is the best intro for me for a
Mm,
character.
mm,
And I mean, I mean, some of the characters we get introduced to, those intros, shit, like damn. But this
mm,
one is so far is the best one because you're introduced to a person with a bang. But then, like, when it introduced us to Spike, when it introduced us to Jet, they did it in quite a slow, mundane way, which isn't a bad thing. But the way how they bring Faye in, she comes in serious. So the thing that I love about it is that how she looks, how she talks, and how she acts are three different things.
mm,
And I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, like, they do it in quite a smart way. I mean, we're not going to beat around the bush here. I mean, like, I mean, Japanese anime, it's known for over sexualizing its female characters,
mm,
and and putting us in, and it kind of puts us in the same, well, basically in the same position as the old man, as like just showing us, glimpses and little scenes of like Faye coming into the shop. So it's showing us like the sexualization or like, or the sexiness that she portrays. But when she gets to that bar and she picks up the cigar and she starts talking, basically it's just all the front. Yeah, this
mm,
is what it is, but there's a lot more behind here. And she handles herself like a true boss. And I love that. I just love that. I just love that intro because it's what you see isn't necessarily what you get. Whereas like with Spike, I mean, what you see is what you get, until the time really comes for him to actually have to really get off his ass and be like, oh, no, I've really got to do something. But
Mm.
it's almost like he's a reluctant hero.
Yeah.
And Jet somewhat the same thing. It was like they'd both really kind of, rather do the job with that, with the least trouble, the better. Whereas like Faye looks like she's about this life. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
how she
Yeah. Yeah.
looks and how she acts, everything is ramped up to 10. They may not necessarily correlate with each other, but this is her and she's going balls deep.
Mm.
And that's the reason why I love this intro of her.
Mm, mm, definitely. Yeah, there's no messing around. And like you said, like they've already shown you like how layered this character is and complex this character is. And listeners, that like Faye is somebody that you're gonna grow to learn a lot about over the course of this series. And we'll definitely dive into a bit of like her past and who she is and how she kind of came to be where she's at. But at this particular point in the story, there's no need for you to really know all of that. The bottom line is she's somebody, as Richard said, who is very duplicitous, can present one kind of front, one kind of image, but turns out to be something completely different as the story kind of progresses. But anyway, at this point, she gets captured, as said, by whoever it is that's hunting her, and she's brought on board a ship, um, and is confronted by a guy called Gordon, who seems to be some kind of like gangster casino owner in the kind of old school style, in the way that you would see the mob be running casinos back in the 60s and the 70s, and the way that it was always headed by somebody who was affiliated to some kind of crime family. You get that in this episode here, and crime is definitely something that obviously plays a big part in the Cowboy Bebop story and the overarching story of it and everything. Um,
Mm.
excuse me, sorry, listeners, I'm still getting over a cold at the moment, so I may cough every once in a while. Um, but the kind of interrogation scene with her and Gordon is quite interesting as well, because he reveals a few things. He reveals that he believes that this woman is the reincarnation of someone called Poker Alice.
Mm.
Poker Alice apparently was this kind of mythical gambler who never lost a hand of cards, always won, and was considered kind of a lucky charm in the old Wild West. And Faye kind of says, well, if I was Poker Alice, that would make me over 200 years old. And you're kind of like, but you didn't deny it though, did you? So you're kind of getting like a bit of foreshadowing for what's to come already, because she doesn't deny it. She just kind of says, yeah, but that would make me X and X age. So you get a real sense that Faye is obviously somebody who's been around the block, to put it mildly. This is somebody who's probably seen a lot of things. And basically, from what we understand from the following scenes, it's like she gets drawn into a plot, right, to basically relieve a gambling chip from somebody who's going to be visiting his casino that evening. Um, so they set up this kind of plan to kind of get the chip away. Um, Meanwhile, we kind of then have the first appearance of Spike and Jet, and they're in this elevator, and they happen to be at the casino. We assume it's just for leisure, and that they're trying to kind of increase their money. Um, there's a back and forth between Spike and Jet as well that I really liked, and they reference Charlie Parker as well. We'll come back to that towards the end as we do like the kind of trivia roundup. But Rich, two questions, man. One, how
Yeah.
good was that interaction with Spike and Jet? And two, why is Spike so nasty, man? Why did he have to swallow the cigarette?
Well, see, the thing is, you know what it is like the thing that I like about this interaction between Spike and Jet is that already we're invested. We know they're friends. We know that it's like is like just listening to them speak is actually just is wicked, and and once again like and it's something that just reminds me of something that happens in the intro for Faye. And I'm gonna say this to all the listeners out there as well. It's like when you watch this show and you watch these episodes, you have to watch it repeatedly because there's so many little things that just hit you and you don't even know that it's even happening until you rewatch it and then you're like, oh wow, I didn't even see that. So slightly
Mm,
deviating, but for example, like when Faye has the shootout, there's one bit where it shows like a point of view of her shooting a gun. Like to me, that's not the type of thing that you'd normally see in like in an anime. They usually just have like, there's basically your money shots where it's basically just one person shooting a gun from one angle, and then like you usually have your cinema, cinema rules, from the eyes follow from left to right. And so the next scene there would be like, let's say the opponent, if the action's filmed correctly, shooting from right to left to show that they're facing in opposite directions. Um, but just to have that point of view thing is just perfect. But then so how it's filmed or how it's drawn is amazing. And then you get like this conversation between two friends, and it's so natural. I'm talking like Tarantino natural, yeah.
mm.
That it's just one of those things where it's like you just want to be there. You want to be involved in a conversation. You don't even want to take part in a conversation. You just want to be amongst these people and watch these two people talk and be like, man, I wish I had a friendship like yours. And I'm not even sure if your friendship's even that type of friendship. But whatever you've got, I want it. Like, and so I just find it wicked how they just interact with each other. The thing about Spike swallowing the cigarette, like I think it's just one of those things where, like I said, how these characters are being written, they never give you everything at once. So on one hand, you look at it as something like, that's just nasty. And then you're like, wait a minute, why would you, number one, why would you do that?
Mm.
Number two, who taught you how to do that? And number
Yeah.
three, why did you learn how to do that? Like, there's a story behind that.
Mm.
So like literally every little thing that they do, there's always some little hints as to like, well, I learned how to fire a gun because XYZ. Or I learned how to drive this because of, at one point, one time in band camp, this happened, and that's those little things that you find throughout this whole show that just always make you think twice, especially, and making you having to go back and rewatch it. But yeah, I love the interaction between Spike and Jet. I like the fact that once again you're getting that whole father figure thing coming out from Jet, where he's like, "Listen, try not. We're going to a place to play and to have a good time, but don't play too well because you're going to get us into trouble."
Mm.
So once again, this isn't the first time they've been into a place like this. So it's those little illusions that this, that even though this is our first time, it kind of makes it feel like it's not our first time, if you get my meaning. Like, we've already been here before, we just don't know it. So yeah, I love the interaction between those two, man. It's too much. It's too well written.
Mm. It is. It is. So, in that scene in the elevator as they're traveling down to the casino, Jet starts mentioning that he's had this dream where he is talking to Charlie Parker, and Charlie Parker says to him that they're going to that basically he has to be generous. He's giving him advice and saying, you've got to give with one hand to receive with the other. And Spike's just like, as typical Spike, is just completely dismissive of it, and it's just like, yeah, whatever, man. You're like, it's the fever dreams of an old man. And I love that kind of like back and forth. Obviously, I love the Charlie Parker reference, but I love the back and forth between the two of them as well, and the way that in which um, there's as he said, that kind of big bro, little bro kind of relationship almost between the two of them.
Mm,
And it feels so natural, as you said. It's kind of, it almost feels like a scene from a Tarantino movie, because the dialogue is so natural and so realistic for characters who are drawn on the screen, and
mm,
that's normally something that you don't always get with animes from that era. So yeah, it's really really kind of a cool scene, and just a way to set the mood for what comes. So they arrive at the casino, at Gordon's casino, and just before they get in, because this I found a bit weird as well. I don't know if this was a deliberate mistake or what, but obviously, as I referenced earlier, Spike swallows his cigar. Sorry, not his cigar, his cigarette that he's smoking, because Jet points out to him that there's no smoking in the casino. which is just disgusting. Like even watching it animated, I was like, ugh. But then like almost the very next shot is Jet at a slot machine smoking a cigar, and I was like, hold on, I thought you said there's no smoking in here. Like, what was that?
Mm.
So that I don't know why that stood out to me. That was just super random, but yeah, it just kind of made me think, well, hold on, you just chastised like Spike for doing that, and you're doing the same thing. Like, it don't make no sense. But anyway, as I said, they get down to the casino, and Spike sets himself up at a blackjack table. But before he does that, actually, he runs into our three old friends from episode one, from session one. I can't remember their
Yeah,
names now. I remember you said their names before, but
yeah. They were
um,
the guys named after the Spanish composer who basically made like a particular style of music, which is
yes,
yeah.
that's right. It's Antonio
Jose Antonio
Antonio
Geraldo.
Carlos and Job and Hobin. Yeah,
That's
Antonio
it. That's it.
Carlos
Yeah, yeah,
Hobin.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that's them. So yeah, it's the same three guys. So they pop up in the episode again, and they're sweating it out at what looks like the blackjack table. And Spike just randomly comes up on them and tells one of them which card to play. And they win some money, and he helps himself to their chips. I was like, right, okay.
Mm.
Is that going on? Yeah, because I'm sure they didn't offer that to you, but you just decided to help yourself. So like, yeah, Spike's just like, yep, thanks for the tip, and helps himself to a couple of chips. So yeah, he settles down at a blackjack table, and he settles himself at the table where Faye is. Now we get at this point we get a quick kind of flashback to the rest of her plan with Gordon, which was that they were going to try and get a chip from somebody who's going to visit the casino that evening. There's something special about this chip. At this point, we don't know what it is, but basically, she needs to get this chip from the gambler and then pass it to Gordon. And then if she does that, Gordon says he'll wipe away all of her debts. Now, debts are quite significant, apparently. Given that she's a gambler herself, you can assume that she's run up quite a big debt and is in with some heavy people who she owes money to. So she doesn't really have much of a choice in this, but she kind of goes along with it, and so she serves as the dealer at this blackjack table. And then Spike is winning, but Faye cheats, I believe, and he loses all of his money that he gambled down. So she is now expecting Spike, because she believes Spike is this guy that they're waiting for, to give her the chip. But instead, Spike just gets up and he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to keep a souvenir." Um, so Faye's like, "Oh, that's not supposed to happen. Like, this is not part of the plan. You're supposed to give me the chip." So she goes off after him, and then you realize that there's actually somebody else who kind of, in passing, looks a bit like Spike. Well, doesn't even
Yeah.
really look like him, but is kind of dressed in a similar way, similar type of clothes and stuff. And the two of them happen to bump into each other in the casino, and they've both got these single chips on them that look identical. And then through one of those kind of typical slapstick comedy moments, they bounce into each other. The chips fly up in the air, and then basically Spike picks up the guy's chip, which is the real chip, the important one, and the other guy just ends up picking up some dud of a chip. Then follows, well, I'm not even going to get into this because I know you love the fights, so I'll let you get into the fight scenes. But the fight scene itself is absolutely hilarious because Gordon's, we assume his goons, try and stop Spike, because they obviously believe Spike is this guy as well that they're waiting for. The fight scene in this, there's one particular like move Spike does that I fucking love, man. But yeah, Rich, man, break down the fight scene, bro.
Listen, the fight scene it is one of those things because like so far we've seen Spike fight. People are pretty much adept and pretty decent at hand to hand, and he's done it with such like a nice flair, and you're just like, yeah, he knows what he's doing. But there's still that element of danger. But these guys that he fights against, the reason why the fight is so good is like you've kind of seen the type of goons they are and the type of people that they work for. So you don't really. have to give them any form of sympathy. So, for example, let's say like when you remember the main guy, or the main bad guy from the first episode of I've forgotten his name, but like you kind of like hope and wish that at some point he is going to be able to find some form of redemption. Like you can imagine that the original plan that they had went south, and you kind of feel that in the girlfriend, and you want them to kind of like be good. He's under the influence, so he's doing bad things because he's addicted to something. But these
Mm.
guys are just heavies. They're just meatheads. They're just lunks. And
Mm.
that's what they are. They're just big for nothing, or like they have strength in numbers. In essence, they're bullies. And this is the same thing that is the same type of feel that you get with the conversation with Gordon and Faye. He's somewhat a bully. Um, and the thing is, they're just the wrong people. Like they just pick the wrong person to fucking pick a fight with. Like there's a bit where they just where they just punch a Spike in the face, and he just the top half of his body just goes with it, but his legs are still standing, and
Mm.
then his body just comes back up, and I think he goes something like, "That was a bad mistake," and you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
"Holy shit!" But then the thing is, the next thing you see is that he's actually out of shot, and you can see the goons, and you just see this foot come up, boom, and it just goes straight. It's like a straight leg just goes straight into this guy's face, and it's just perfect. And and obviously, like we've said, Spike, I mean that, but especially his fighting style is basically is a real fighting style. Is Jeet Kune Do, which was created by Bruce Lee. And if you've seen any if you've seen any like Bruce Lee films, yeah, you'll actually recognize some of the moves. That's how much attention they pay. How much attention they pay to detail. When Spike's fighting, but it's basically it once again. It's a hark back to one of the kicks that you see Spike practicing in the first episode, where he
Mm.
just does like a straight out kick, and and shows that he's got enough strength and flexibility to actually still keep the leg in the same position, but then to move from left to right. So like I said before, the thing about this show is that it just doesn't do things for fun. It's there for a reason, and there will always be references to it. Sometimes you just need to rewatch something numerous times to be able to remember it and to be like, oh, okay, this happened here or this happened there. But then he just basically proceeds to do just whoop everybody's ass. And I swear there's a bit where it looks like he even does like some form of like but kick, hurricane kick that Ken and
He
Ryu
does.
can
He
do,
does.
and and he takes down like six people that in
Yeah,
one go.
he
So
hits
he just
like
basically
three
does like a
guys at
360
once.
kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is but it's just one of those things where it's like this isn't anything. This is just a walk in the park to him. Like he's just like,
Mm.
oh, okay, cool. You picked the fight with me, so I actually have no reason to feel guilty, and just for that, somebody's getting whooped tonight. And yeah, and it's just so well done.
Mm. Mm. And you know what else made me laugh in that fight as well? It's the elbow he drops on some guy's back. Because I
Oh
swear,
yeah.
the guy literally goes, "Oh!" Like the guy's eyes
Sorry.
out of his bloody head. Like it's just
Yeah, yeah,
funny.
yeah. Let's
The way they animated that scene just cracked me up. Cracked me up, man. But yeah, listeners, that's a fight scene worth watching, man. Especially if you want to see, like, kind of as Richard said, the kind of intricacies and the things that they're able to pull off within the animation during that fight scene. Then it's definitely worth a watch. And also because it adheres to the rule that Rich and I have as fans of kind of martial arts movies and the genre of martial arts movies is that the fighting style should tell you something about the character, so you should be able to tell almost like a mini story with a fight scene. And as Rich said, it's like it's basically effortless for him to take out these 7 or 8 guys, because
Mm.
it's almost like to him it's not enough of a challenge. Like for Spike, he always kind of strives to be challenging himself to do more. And as said, this fight scene is like he's almost kind of half bored while he's fighting, which makes it all the more hilarious, really. But yeah, so we have the fight scene, and then we have another funny bit as well, where a crowd starts to gather around, And Jet is in the background because someone says, "Oh, there's a fight," and Jet goes, "What, a fight? Where?" So Jet looks up and then he realizes it's Spike, and he's like, "Oh man, Spike!" Like,
He's like,
so
haven't even cashed my chips yet.
yeah, 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 because he's got like at this point he's won like quite a bit of wulongs on in the casino. I think it's like 200,000 or something like that, or 300,000.
Yes,
I can't
something
remember.
ridiculous.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
He's got,
he cleaned up shop. Let's put it that way.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, he's got piles and piles and piles, listeners, of these casino chips in his hand. So yeah, presumably he's won quite a bit. Um, while this is going on, Faye is trying to make a move to get out of the casino. And this was another scene I thought was really cool. She has like a wristband that she turns on, and says something like, I can't remember exactly what she said now, but it's something to the effect of, um, "Let's get it started" or something like that.
Yeah,
And
it was showtime or something like
yeah,
that.
that's it. I think she says it's showtime or something like that. And it activates this voice activation on her little ship, which is a little zip craft, they call it. Um, and it's just so cool because you get an animated sequence of the craft's AI checking her voice, recognizing her voice, and then activating the ship. And the ship crashes through the side of the casino. Um, excuse me. And yeah, she like the ship just, as I said, crashes through the side of the casino, and people are panicking. And she manages to make it onto her vessel, onto I think it's called the Red Tail, isn't it? Ship. I think
Yeah,
it's called
yeah.
that. Yeah. She manages to make it onto her ship, and is just like hell bent on getting the hell out of the casino. Flies off, but then somehow manages to get Spike and Jet on her windshield. So they kind of like on the windscreen, and she's like, "What the hell?" So they escape the casino without Jet's winnings, and Faye basically piloting the Red Tail to get them out there. And then you get the scene with the gangster Gordon, and he kind of is disappointed because he finds out that the guy that he was waiting for obviously doesn't have the real chip because their chips have been swapped over, his and Spike. So you get a little bit more of a sense that this chip is obviously very important to these criminals. And Gordon just shoots the guy like 4 times, I think it is, or something like that. You don't actually see it on screen, which makes it even more powerful because it kind of cuts away just as he pulls the trigger, and then the screen kind of fades to black towards the kind of episode break, and you just hear those
Mm.
other shots. I don't know about you, Rich, but I mean, how did you find that scene? Because I found that scene like, I thought it was cool, but it was just cold, man. Because it's like you get and I know you've mentioned this before on the other episodes, but it's like, there's always these moments of comedy with Cowboy Bebop, but are punctuated with like a savage moment of violence to just, as you said before, remind you that this is real. So, how did you find that the way that scene played out?
Well, exactly that. I think that's what it is. I mean, it kind of hammers it home that as much as we may not respect them because we've seen them get handled, don't underestimate them. Like I said, because they run the casino, they're all in flashy suits. He just has these goons who are clearly not the smartest, you know, tools in a cookie jar. But then this bit of callousness just reminds us that be like, okay, cool, fair enough. You may not take us seriously, but you know, at some point you will. And it's
Mm,
and it's just, like you said, and it's just how straight is how straight he does it. Like you said,
mm,
and I think the good thing is like them not showing it on screen actually does hammer it home. Um, but the thing that makes it even more is that like because I mean you've just obviously just seen Spike, Jet, and Faye just escape from these guys as well, and you're like, oh, this is freaking easy. This is all right. And then after you see him commit this, well, well, I'm not even sure what to even call it, but this act of meanness,
mm,
it kind of just reminds you that okay, fair enough. They may have got handled last time, but now these guys are pissed off, and this is what they are prepared to do. They're prepared to kill without question. What do you have for me? You haven't got it for me? Bang, gone, you're dead.
mm,
So where you've got Faye on the run from these people and Spike and Jet, you're like, well, this might not be fun the next time you meet them. because you've seen what they're capable of doing. So and that's the reason why I love that scene. Like it all of a sudden just becomes a lot more serious. It changes from, you know, like a 12 or a PG-13 to a 15, which isn't a big jump, but then it's a big jump if done correctly. And like there's a difference between being, you know, being a young adult and like being like an adult, like 15-year-old who where you're allowed to, you know, watch and see certain things. And that is that jump for me in that scene. It's really done well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. So at that point, we get the episode, the traditional episode break, as you have in anime shows, and when it returns, we're back on board the Bebop, the ship, and Faye, I think, is handcuffed in a toilet or something like that. I think it's the toilet,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is a
It is,
toilet. It
isn't
is a
it? Yeah.
toilet. Yeah, because you know the reason why? Because
Mm.
I was watching it while I was having dinner. I was watching it, and Luca was watching it, and she was handcuffed, and he was like, "Daddy, but doesn't she want to use the toilet?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, she does. Yeah, just finish your dinner."
For those of you that don't know, listeners, Luca is Richard's son. He's made a guest appearance on Wulong Talks a couple of times, so you should know who
Yeah.
he is if you've been listening. But yeah, just in case you didn't know. But yeah, so she's handcuffed and kind of being interrogated by Spike and Jet, and Ein, who makes his first appearance as well, which I loved. And you know, we basically we find out that Jet and Spike's plan is they're gonna you know, hand her in and get, I think, the 200,000 back, get the 200,000 back that was lost. What happens instead, though, is Jet does some analysis on the chip that Spike has got, and Spike switches on the TV to watch Big Shot. Now, you'll remember from session two was the first time we saw Big Shot, the TV show. Basically, Big Shot, for those of you that don't know, is a TV show within the actual series that the characters watch. And what it does is it gives you the exposition for the a particular character or for a plot point. So at this point, Big Shot comes on, and Punch and Judy are talking about none other than Faye, who they have locked up in their toilet. They give us her full name, that her name is Faye Valentine, and that her bounty is worth 6 million wulongs. So the guys are like, "Well, boy, we're definitely handing you in now." Like, you know, this. If we were ever doubting it before, like 6 million wulongs is a lot of money. So, yeah, your ass is going to the police. Um, but instead, what happens is Faye decides to call Gordon and say, "Look, I'm on this ship. These guys have got the chip. Deal with these guys." And so they make up like a deal to kind of get the chip back from the guys. You find out also that the casino chip that Spike has got from the other guy who died earlier in their episode is actually a microchip and is part of an AI program that's a code breaker. And what it does is it can break any code out there. So basically, in the hands of somebody like Gordon, he can use it for, you know, whatever criminal means he wants to use it for. Um, and it's basically a very, very sought after object. So the Bebop crew, Spike and Jet, agree to meet with Gordon out in space, and they're going to do like a handover. So basically, Gordon, I think the fee that they settle on is 30 million wulongs. I think it is that Jet
Yeah,
says.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to go and do like a trade. So you know, the Spike and Jet will trade the chip for this 30 million wulongs outside the ship. So Spike puts on this spacesuit and he goes out there to meet the Gordon's men out in space. And this scene I loved as well because I loved the way it was done. It kind of reminded me of 2001: A Space Odyssey in a weird way.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of some of the space scenes and things like that. So I'm not sure if that was a specific reference point that they used for this scene, but like Spike's suit, because I guess because it had so much red in it, it made
Mm.
me think of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So yeah, that was kind of a cool like nod. And again, the way the scene is animated, you get a real sense of the weightlessness and the fact that they're in space and things like that. So it feels, again, it feels kind of real, you know, the way that it's done and stuff. And then the trade is about to go down. But before the trade happens, Faye manages to escape. She manages to break her handcuffs. She raids out their fridge, which I thought was joke because it's like
Mm.
again it's that running theme of food within Cowboy Bebop and the importance of food and how everybody's always going on about food. It seems like a lot of people in Cowboy Bebop don't eat too good because the first
Yeah.
thing Faye did is go straight to their fridge after she broke out to go and eat. And then she manages to kind of get into the outer hull. And then Ayn finds her out there and is waiting for her and starts growling at her. And she runs off, and Ayn obviously chases her. And then the next scene we get is the trade-off scene, and I love the way this scene is played out. But Rich, yeah, talk us through like the kind of the trade-off scene that happens out in space.
Well, the thing is that, well, like I said, I mean, watching the episodes, the thing that I loved about it, and it's something that we haven't really seen that much of, if not this is the first time we've seen it, like I said, is that it takes place in space. So we know that it takes place in the future, and we've seen the Bebop ship, and we've seen the swordfish, and we've seen and in this episode we've seen that the actual casino, which is actually basically one of the things we forgot to mention is that it's actually a floating casino. You know, that is like a isn't it got like a big roulette table hologram
Yeah, yeah,
around
yeah,
the actual ship? Yeah, and so you see like Spike in this spacesuit, and it just for 2 seconds it just throws you off, and then it just then you have to take a step back and be like, shit, yeah, I'm watching something which is like just a mixture of everything. And so that's one of the first things that I loved about it. But it shows you how, once again, how well Jet and Spike work together as well.
yeah.
Because right now, as it stands, like in this actual like trade-off, it shows everything from the perspective of Gordon and his guys calling all the shots. And you're like, okay, how are you going to pull this off? And when it does eventually cut to Jet and it does cut to Spike, they once again, like, they're just laid back. Even though we've just had, we've seen the callousness that Gordon and his guys are prepared to do, and they're in this trade-off, and nothing seems to be going in Jet and Spike's favor. And like Spike's sitting in his chair, and I think he's even like just kind of just like leaning back as opposed to his normal like uptight self. And then he just goes into this tirade about, yeah, the chip is this and the chip is that, and blah 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 blah. And in this little speech where they're going back and all this conversation where um Jet and Gordon are trading information, you get a little bit of information to Jet's backstory, that he used to be part of is it ISPP or is it ISSP?
ISSP, yeah, ISSP, yeah.
ISSP, yeah, which is like is it like a special police force?
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I think
and
it's
and and
the intergalactic space something police. Sorry, I can't remember what the actual thing is, but I'll look it up. Carry on.
yeah, and basically, and then you get a little bit of information like that. And for the first time in a long time, you see, not say that Spike hasn't been smart in the first two episodes, but you see the smarts that he does possess. And there's a whole thing of just like, yeah, I used to do this and I used to do that. Don't call my bluff. You're not entering into my world. Whatever you think you know, I know it and I've known it before you. This is like, really, like, don't play this game. And
Hmm.
so you've got that whole conversation happening, and then basically, and then as this is going on, you've got the whole thing with Spike having to do this trade-off. And my favorite scene is the bit, obviously, I think, where he's jumping from the Bebop to the bad guy ship, and when he lands, instead of it just cutting to another scene and showing about before they do the trade-off, once again it shows the attention to detail of how they frame and they shoot scenes. The screen itself turns. Did you see that, Jay?
Mm-hmm.
Like basically, so basically he lands from one ship to the other, but he's upside down.
Yeah.
But they want you to have a sense of the weightlessness and how, and the rule, and one of the rules of space is that there is no up or down or left or right. It just is until you find something with some form, with some center of gravity, and that's when you can apply the rules that you would have. Let's say if you want a planet that had gravity, and so at this point, like, he's just floating and he lands on the ship, turns on his the magnets on his boots, sticks to the ship, and then it just shows us from his point of view. Is his point of view but there is no wrong or right way, but it's just for us, for the viewers, to be able to watch it easily. And
Mm.
and like I said, and I don't remember that bit until I watched it today, and I was just like, shit, like there's people who make films for a living that don't think that far ahead of how to film shots. So it just reminds me of like when you're talking about the whole thing where you think there's some form of like homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey, because of the same like the amount of attention to detail that Kubrick does or Kubrick gives in that film. The bit where you see Dave performing his daily
Mm.
exercise, where he's running in like a bit like a circular tube,
Yeah.
but then it's shot in a particular angle, so it looks like he's running in in zero gravity.
Mm.
And so like so even when like that bit where Spike, changes his the perspective changes for Spike so we can see it better, or the wheel that's turning round, that's actually where the in between where they're gonna do the exchange. Now that I'm just talking about it and thinking back to it, this whole episode, the majority of this episode, is just one big homage to Stanley Kubrick.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
I don't
very
know if
true.
I don't know if I don't know if I just had a brain fart there. Yeah, but basically they go to do the exchange, and it's shot really really well because you're thinking that from what we know of Spike, he's literally just gonna pile drive in and just just do his main thing. But he plays it really really smart, and there's this turning wheel which, for let's say for a momentum, or let's say for a moment, obstructs like each person's vision. What the bad guy, or what Gordon's goon, takes out the gun, takes a shot, which is pretty slick because he does it quite quick. But once again, like Jet was saying to Gordon, him and Spike are both ahead of the game, and you see Spike disappear,
Mm.
and the guy's like, "Shit, I just shot into nowhere." And then you just look up, and then Spike does like a little rebound off like one of the pylons, and he just comes down and just fucking takes him out. And it's just awesome. The thing that I love about it is that it just once again shows you that no matter where Spike is, he's always good at what he does, as
Mm.
long as he's like putting his mind to it. So whether he's like in a casino where he can win money, whether he's like on a fighting against this guy, whether he's just wearing like a basic disguise where all he does is just put a sombrero on and a little poncho, and and he pretends to be like a Mexican and you don't really recognize him, or whether you see him fighting in space, or whether you see him fighting a bunch of goons like hand-to-hand combat. He just seems to do everything so well and effortlessly. And it's
Mm.
another one of those scenes where it's just like, I reckon in school he was one of those kids where at parents' evening, they'd be like, Spike isn't really pushed himself, and it's like middle of the term. Like, if he just paid more attention in class, he'd do really, really well. And he always got like C's and D's, and then come by the end of the year, he just smashes his exams. And he's those, and
Mm.
he's just one of those guys that you just like, you either love or you just hate.
Mm.
But that's what I love about that whole exchange scene because it is quite tense. But
Mm.
then once again, you find out that as tense as it is, they've got everything in hand, and there's nothing to worry about.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, man, for true that was it's a pretty awesome scene, listeners. So yeah, definitely go and check that out, man, because the way it's kind of framed and everything is perfect. So yeah, as Spike is kind of battling away with this goon and deals with this goon. Faye manages to get to the Red Tail and blasts her way out of the Bebop, which annoys Jet because Jet's like, you could have just used the hangar. Like, why are you shooting my ship? Which I thought was kind of funny. And she steals the briefcase with the money that they were going to trade for the ship. She takes the briefcase and she heads off. Uh, and Gordon says, don't let her get away. So they start firing like a load of rockets at her ship. So she lets off, like her ship lets off these little flares that kind of deflect the rockets. And she manages to do something to the rocket to make it go back to where it came from. I think they said she reversed the polarity or something like that. Typical kind of sci-fi dialogue, and reverse the polarity. But she manages to send the rocket back to where it came from, and the rocket slams into Gordon's ship. And that's Gordon and his goons bye bye. Basically, the ship blows up. And Faye gets away with the money. She kind of yeah, gives them a cheeky wink, and then off she goes with all the cash. So Faye ends up winning big time out of this one. Um and the episode kind of ends really with Spike and Jet going back to the casino, and they've still got the chip. At this point, the chip to them is useless because the people who were going to buy it would have given them money, and they can't give it to the ISSP, um, because again, they'll get no reward for it. So they just decide they're going to go and gamble it in the casino. And the last kind of statement on the final scene is "easy come, easy go." And I love that because it's just a perfect kind of summation of gambling and kind of taking your chances.
Mm,
Whenever you get involved in a game of chance, it's it can be easy to come across the money sometimes, but it can also disappear, in the blink of an eye. And as they always say in casinos in Las Vegas, the house always wins. So there's no point in you trying to, kind of game the system and come up with something else because at the end of the day, you'll always end up penniless. So
mm.
yeah, that's kind of how the episode ends, really. I did look up the name of the ISSP. It's Intersolar System Police. So that's what
Okay,
they are.
okay,
Yeah. And basically,
okay.
listeners have said they are the police force for the galaxy in the world of Cowboy Bebop, and they often will use the bounty hunters like Jet and Spike, um, to bring in these criminals that they can't get because they're quite understaffed. So they don't really have like the officers on the beat and things like that. You don't see it often in the show. There seems to be like kind of a core of detectives that operates, I think, on Mars or somewhere like that. And then there's a few kind of officers who have cars and things like that, but not enough, obviously, to cover the galaxy. So that's where the bounty hunters kind of come in and stuff. Um, but yeah, man, I mean that for me was like such a fun episode, really, because you got everything. You got a bit about a brand new character in Faye, and just enough to kind of keep you interested in her. But um, she leaves the episode kind of how she starts it, really, as an enigma, as something that we don't really, is clearly not what she seems, as you said to begin with. And so for me, it was kind of the perfect way to end it. How
Mm.
did you feel about the end of it?
I really enjoyed the ending. Like I said, once again, is like this is the third episode, and you've kind of become accustomed to them not winning but losing. But even when they lose, they win. So that it's like that little thing where I mean, you kind of get that they kind of allude that there might be some form of like tension between Spike and Faye. So even at the end where she kind of like flies off and they realize that she's taken money and Spike kind of turns and has this little smile on his face and it's just like, yeah, this is it. This is just another day. And once again, it continues the story or continues the same narrative that's going to be something that continues throughout this show. It's like this is just another day. It could be
Hmm.
Wednesday, it could be Thursday, it could be a boring day, it could be an exciting day. And we went to the casinos and we had a pretty much exciting day. Did we win any money? No. But did we have fun? Yeah. Okay, let's go home and stay hungry. like so I really that the ending is quite good. I like that. It's like I said, it sticks to everything that makes this show like just so well written.
Yeah.
Instead of like the hero always winning at the end, which is fake. There's different types of winning.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. One thing we forgot to mention as well is the back and forth between um, Spike and Faye on the Bebop when she's being interrogated, because we find out, or she claims that she is a Romani gypsy,
Yeah. Mm,
and she has this back and forth with Spike where she calls him a gajo, I think it is,
yeah.
which apparently means that he's a bumpkin, that he's a bit of an idiot. Um, and as in that final scene where Faye kind of takes off with the money, I think Spike looks up her and says, "Gajo, I like that," or something like that.
Mm,
Um, so it kind of is a nice kind of end to that sort of arc and their interaction, really. And it shows there's, even though she's got away with the money, there's definitely a kind of mutual respect between Spike and Faye. I think Spike probably sees a lot of himself in her, and vice versa. So that was a cool kind of way to end that interaction there.
Mm.
Did you want to add anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much. Was there something else that I noticed in it as well? No, I think I've said it. Yeah. I think I've already said it. I think it was the whole thing about how the actual place where they go to gamble, the
Mm,
actual thing actually is just one big massive casino. Like it's like the actual building or the space station is set up like a casino, and I just found that hilarious. Like,
mm, mm. Yeah, man, that was just brilliant. Well, let's dive into some of the trivia. So, the main writer on this episode was Ryota Yamaguchi, who apparently has written a number of episodes in the series as well. Um, and if we go to the trivia, I'll just head to the trivia and have a look. Okay, yeah. So I've got the trivia section open. Sorry about that, listeners. So the trivia we're getting here is from the website Bebopopedia, which is a really cool website if you want to get like kind of background information about certain episodes and things like that. I think it's all been curated by fans and stuff, but it's normally pretty well researched as well. So there's a couple of things here that stand out. Apparently, the no smoking scene in the elevator, um, that is a kind of recurring theme in Cowboy Bebop, which is
mm,
Spike smoking in no smoking areas and people telling him he can't smoke there. So again, it's kind of his. I don't know if that was the Japanese kind of writers and stuff sticking a finger up to to the way that Japan can be, because Japan can be quite draconian where smoke is concerned, which is weird because loads of Japanese people smoke. So yeah, I don't know where that kind of idea came from, but I presume it's them kind of sticking a middle finger up to the kind of
mm.
attitudes to smoking in Japan. Um, what else is there that's interesting here? Yeah, so the three old men, yeah, Antonio, Carlos, and Hobim make their appearance in the episode, and they're the ones sitting at the baccarat table. Spike doesn't otherwise recognize the three old men from Asteroid Blues, which is quite interesting because he doesn't recognize them. He certainly doesn't let on that he recognizes them. He just kind of randomly interacts with them at this point. But that's kind of cool. Um, and apparently them not collecting the money again. I mean, I think you said this quite early on when we started doing the Bebop rewatch. They don't always win, and again, they have close on to Spike. They have a phase bounty of 6 million on her head, which they were going to collect. They don't. There was the transfer of money that they were going to get from the gangsters. They don't. Face steals it, and it's a recurring thing. As said, you'll find out, listeners, with the show, it's a continual recurring theme that they're always this close to getting the money, but they just don't get it.
Mm.
So Honky Tonk Women, which is the name of this episode, apparently is a reference to a hit song from an English rock band that you will know and I will know, called the Rolling Stones. Honky Tonk Woman
Okay,
is
yeah.
basically like an exotic dancer. So that's what the reference in the title is referring to. Poker Alice is apparently somebody, a legend that really did exist within the Wild West. According to Bebopopedia, she was a 19th century professional gambler and card dealer that was skilled in counting cards. Her fame grew in Sturgis and Deadwood, South Dakota, around the same time as the notable Wild West figures Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane. Like Faye, she smokes cigars, carries a gun, and was a wanted felon. So there you go. Charlie Parker, as we said, was referenced earlier, which was really cool. Charlie Parker, for those who don't know, he's a really, really influential jazz musician, perhaps one of the most influential jazz musicians in the genre. He came out, I think he may have started before Miles Davis or after. I can't remember. No, it's definitely before, I think. I think he started before Miles Davis. I'm not 100% sure on that. I will look that up for the next episode. But
Mm.
anyway, I mean, if you know your jazz, then you'll know the name Charlie Parker. He was a saxophonist. He was a composer as well. And he was somebody who was kind of considered at the forefront of like the bebop movement within jazz.
Mm.
which is a lot faster than some other forms of jazz, and it relies heavily on kind of improvisation. So all of the kind of things you think of with a typical jazz track that features a saxophonist, probably it's that saxophonist is probably influenced by Charlie Parker in some way. So there's that.
Okay.
Um, let's see what's happening here. Oh yeah. Oh, this one's quite interesting. So apparently, when Spike and Jet are in the lift has a screen that says "Welcome to Spaders from Mars." It's a spelling mistake. It's actually supposed to say "Spiders from Mars," and "Spiders from Mars" was one of David Bowie's backup bands. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah. So that's where the name Spiders from Mars comes from, and apparently that was also the name of the casino in this episode as well. So
Oh.
yeah, so that's a direct reference to David Bowie. And as we said, there's also the space scene where Spike goes for the money transfer is a direct reference to Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. So yeah, we were spot on with that one. And last bit of trivia as well, Honky Tonk, for those that don't know, is a name that's given to kind of bars in the Southwest and Deep South in America. And usually they're called honky tonks because they feature a piano or a live band who provide the entertainment. The clientele is usually a bit rough, and it's kind of a center of basically all kinds of nefarious things. The history of the term apparently can be traced back as early as 1894. I don't know if honky tonks still exist. I think they do in America. I think you still get them. They're probably not as prevalent as they once were. But if you think to give a more kind of like recognizable reference, I suppose somewhere like Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze would be
Okay.
a honky, I guess,
Yeah.
because it's that
Yeah.
same.
You're right. That would be a honky tonk. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So any kind of like sort of stereotypical biker bar that you can think of, basically, or somewhere where shit goes down, that's a honky tonk. So yeah, man, that's it. So that's the trivia done. But yeah, as I said, I really do love this episode. I really, really enjoyed it. I know it wasn't necessarily your favorite. Did you want to go into a bit about why it wasn't necessarily your favorite?
No. I mean, it wasn't ever. It wasn't even necessarily a bad thing. It was just. It's just that like I just felt that I felt more attuned to the first two episodes than I did with this one, even though
Mm,
like this episode did do a few different things compared to the first two. I mean like the way how they introduce like Faye to the audience. Um I thought, like I said, I thought that was really, really well done. And then obviously like the references to Kubrick and things like that, that was well done as well. But I wouldn't say that it felt like a filler inner episode, because obviously we're introduced to Faye, to Faye, but it doesn't. I don't know. I just can't put my finger on it. But there's just something about the first two episodes that I just prefer as compared to this one.
mm, mm. Cool. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Well, listeners, let us know what you think of this episode as well. I mean, like, does this one feel not quite in the same vibe as the previous two, or did you enjoy it just as much? You can let us know by getting in touch with us on Facebook. We have a official Facebook page. There'll be a link for that in the description wherever you're listening to the podcast. So you just need to pop along there. You can like the page, and then you can drop us a message if you want. And also, if you want to be a guest on the show as well, because we really do want to get some fans on to talk about the show and their experiences, then you can do that again via our Facebook page, or you can do it via email as well. We have an email address set up, which is the Bebop Rewatch podcast at gmail.com. So if you just send us an email there, I'll pick that up and we could have a chat and sort that out. All right, man. Well, I think we've come to the end of this one. So yeah, we'll call it a night and saddle up our horses and get ready to hit the trail again, man. But Rich, anything else you wanted to say before we check out?
Nope. If anything, like Jay said already, if you haven't watched this episode, go and watch it. If you have watched it, watch it again. Why not? Well, in fact, watch the first three episodes. Like, get up to speed.
Mm,
You're missing out on something great, man. That's the reason why we're doing this show.
exactly, exactly. Um, don't forget, we also have an Instagram page as well. So if you're an Instagram user, you can follow us on Instagram. You'll get updates on when the podcast is starting and any other cool stuff that we're doing. We'll kind of post it up on there as well. And also, of course, yeah, don't forget to subscribe to Wulong Talks. We have loads and loads and loads of. I mean, we just did our 51st episode a little while back. So you've got lots of content to get through there. We do, movie reviews. We talk about games, anime, all kinds of stuff. All the kind of geeky stuff that you like. I mean, if you're a Cowboy Bebop fan, you're probably a fan of other animes and things like that as well. So why not join us and have a listen and enjoy it? To find that again, right where you are. So if you're on our YouTube page, you just need to go to the playlist that we've set up for Wulong Talks podcasts there. Or if you're on SoundCloud, again, we've got playlists on SoundCloud, so you can take your pick of anything you fancy listening to and have a listen and enjoy. And if you are listening to us on iTunes, please do leave us a rating as well. That really, really helps in terms of helping other people find us. And make sure you subscribe so you don't have to keep checking all the time. You can just get an instant update on your phone as soon as a new episode comes out. All right. As said, we're going to saddle up and head for, the sunset because I think it's time to leave. So it's good night from me. Rich, say good night.
Good night.
And we'll see you, Space Cowboys and Cowgirls. Enjoy yourselves and take it easy out there. Peace.